Let me remind you, most people believe their future will be shaped by big moments, a big opportunity, a big breakthrough, a big decision that suddenly changes everything. But the truth about life is far quieter than that. Your future is rarely shaped by dramatic events. It is shaped by small behaviors repeated so often. They become invisible. What you do daily eventually becomes who you become permanently. The frightening part is that most people never notice this happening because habits do not announce themselves. They slowly shape identity behind the scenes. James Clear once wrote, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become." That sentence carries a deeper truth than most people realize because habits are not simply things you do. Habits are things that shape who you are. And over time, identity becomes destiny. Look closely at the people who seem successful, disciplined, focused, confident. It often appears as if they were born that way. But in reality, most of those traits were built quietly over years through habit. The same is true in the opposite direction. People rarely wake up one day and suddenly fall into failure. They drift there, slowly, through repeated small decisions that seem harmless in the moment. Skipping effort, avoiding discomfort, choosing distraction over focus, choosing convenience over growth. One small compromise rarely feels dangerous, but repeated compromises create a pattern, and patterns create identity. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. That idea explains why habits quietly control outcomes, because once behavior becomes automatic, it stops requiring conscious effort. Your brain loves habits. Habits reduce thinking. Habits conserve energy. Habits allow your mind to operate efficiently. But this efficiency creates a dangerous side effect. Once something becomes a habit, you rarely question it anymore. You simply repeat it, which means the quality of your life often depends on the quality of your unconscious routines. The first habit that shapes your future is attention. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Most people underestimate the power of attention. But attention is the doorway through which reality enters your mind. What you watch, what you listen to, what you read, what you scroll, what conversations you participate in, all of these inputs slowly shape your perception of the world. And perception shapes belief. Belief shapes action. Action shapes outcome. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your daily attention is filled with noise, your mind becomes chaotic. If your attention is filled with negativity, your mindset becomes pessimistic. If your attention is filled with growth, your thinking becomes expansive, which means protecting your attention may be one of the most important habits in modern life. The second habit that shapes your future is discipline. Discipline is often misunderstood. People imagine discipline as punishment, restriction, or harsh self-control, but real discipline is simply alignment between your actions and your goals. It is doing what matters, even when motivation disappears. Because motivation is emotional, discipline is structural. Motivation rises and falls. Discipline remains steady. Jocko Willink once said, "Discipline equals freedom." At first, this sounds like a contradiction, but discipline creates stability. Stability creates progress, and progress creates freedom. Without discipline, life becomes reactionary. You respond to every emotion, every distraction, every impulse. But with discipline, you begin shaping life intentionally, and intentional living produces powerful results over time. The third habit that controls your future is your relationship with discomfort. Growth and comfort rarely exist in the same place. Learning new skills is uncomfortable. Starting something new is uncomfortable. Taking risks is uncomfortable. Even telling the truth can be uncomfortable, which is why many people avoid growth without realizing it. They chase comfort, but comfort slowly shrinks potential. Naval Ravikant once said, "All the returns in life come from compound interest, not only in money, but in knowledge, in relationships, in reputation, in skills. But compound growth requires patience. And patience requires tolerating temporary discomfort. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you expand your future." The fourth habit that shapes your life is thinking. Most people spend their lives reacting. reacting to news, reacting to stress, reacting to circumstances, but few people intentionally think. Real thinking requires quiet, reflection, distance from noise. Albert Einstein once said, "The problem with the world is that everyone is a few drinks behind." What he meant was that people often move through life without deep reflection. They repeat patterns without examining them. They chase goals without questioning them. They follow paths without choosing them. But thinking changes direction. When you pause long enough to reflect, you begin seeing patterns others miss. And people who see patterns rarely remain stuck for long. The fifth habit is environment. Human beings are deeply influenced by their surroundings. Your environment quietly sets your standards. The people around you, the conversations you hear, the expectations that surround you. All of these things influence behavior more than willpower ever could. Jim Rohn famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This is not just motivational advice, it is psychological reality. Humans adapt to the norms of their environment, which means the fastest way to change behavior is often to change surroundings. When your environment encourages growth, discipline becomes easier. When your environment encourages mediocrity, growth becomes harder. The sixth habit that determines your future is learning. In a world changing faster than ever before, the most powerful skill is the ability to continuously learn. Knowledge compounds, skill compounds, perspective compounds, and those who continue learning remain adaptable. Charlie Munger once said, "In my whole life, I have known no wise people who didn't read all the time." Learning expands possibility. It reveals opportunities. It prevents stagnation. But most importantly, learning keeps your mind evolving. And a mind that keeps evolving rarely becomes trapped. When you step back and observe life carefully, a powerful truth becomes visible. Your future is not created suddenly. It is created slowly, through daily behavior, through quiet routines, through invisible patterns repeated over time. This means something important. It means transformation does not require dramatic change. It requires consistent direction. A small improvement repeated daily eventually becomes a completely different life, which means the question is not, what big moment will change my future? The real question is, what small habits am I repeating today? Because those habits are already building the life you will eventually live. And the moment you become aware of this process, you gain something powerful: choice. You can choose better habits, better inputs, better environments, better thinking, and those choices quietly reshape your future. If this message reached you at the right time, stay connected to ReMyndU. Because sometimes the future you want is not waiting somewhere ahead. It is quietly being built by the habits you repeat today.